I still buy bootlegs. So I
We are
guess
live.
Wayne is ready to go. Go ahead,
We
Wayne.
are live. We are live, and welcome to Rat Salad Review. Hey, oh my God, look who it is. Ralph Vieira.
They call him Dr. Fuck.
They call him Dr. Fuck. And Manny, how do you pronounce your last name, Manny?
Mejias.
Mejias.
Yeah.
Welcome, Manny, and welcome, Ralph.
Hello.
Live in front of your naked steaming eyes.
I used to have a drug problem, but now I have enough money. That's a totally Ralph quote.
Yeah.
And welcome, Lou Mavs. Welcome back to the show.
When was I gone?
I don't know. You're always here. And
Yeah.
welcome me. But today, if I can talk correctly, we're going to talk about did grunge kill heavy metal? We were supposed to have a guest on, and actually we're supposed to have Don De Lamont. And if anybody's heard of him, he's got his own podcast called The Great Southern Brain Fart. Really cool guy, but he ended up getting injured, so he had to go to the hospital and get 3 stitches put in his finger. And so hopefully he's well and everything, and maybe we'll get to him next week. We'll see what happens. But nice hair, Ralph, by the way.
Yeah, I'm wearing a hat, but I'm not bald.
One
You know
step
how much
above
easier
Angus.
this is? Yeah. It's much easier to be bald. I mean, look, everybody's got hair here. You got Manny with his curly hair.
Your head anyway, like the the little stubbles on the side and shit. You don't have to do that, Wayne.
I do. I just actually shaved the other day. Yeah.
But isn't that a pain in the ass? I mean, it's
It
pain
is.
to shave the face, man. You gotta do the whole fucking head.
I do it all at the same time. I shave my face and shave my head all at the same time. Pain in the balls. It really sucks.
I mean, God, how do you do that? Do you have mirrors all around you so you can?
No, I just blindly shave.
Don't lie. We know you're a narcissist. You have mirrors everywhere.
No, I don't. I
You
do
know
it
you're
all by.
like
No, I don't do that. But welcome to the show, and we're going to talk about the grunge era and did it kill heavy metal? First of all, I'm just going to say no, because grunge started like early, I mean late 89ish, right? 90s. And just as it was starting, I was getting into heavy metal. So I mean, I started out with Def Leppard and got into Testament, Metallica, and Iron Maiden and stuff like that. So when the grunge period got huge, I found out Soundgarden, and to me, Soundgarden sounded like a metal band.
Absolutely.
And Nirvana, they had It Smells Like Teen Spirit. To me, that's kind of like a metal song almost. It's the heavy drums and the guitars, and I did not see grunge killing metal. Now I see grunge killed like the hair bands, like the glam stuff like that, but I think that was even killing itself because how much that wasn't going to last long. Nobody wants to see all that.
I blame hair metal for killing hair metal.
Right.
I
killing
agree.
him.
Yeah. Well, it had a pretty long reign from 83 to about 90, 91. So that's not bad. But
I do agree, Manny. The thing about me where it comes to hair metal, I really think the term hair metal really begins around whenever the first Poison album, because if you're going to label Motley Crue, Dokken, Rat hair metal, it wasn't hair metal in the early 80s.
No.
It was called heavy metal.
Right.
It wasn't that glossy. I mean, I admit Motley Crue, Rat, and all these bands and Dokken got glossy later. But that early era, which those bands that are classified as hair metal, those were some metal albums. Shout out to Devil, Tooth and Nail, Out of the Cellar. I mean, those were some rocking albums, man.
well, I saw the term pop metal magazines like Circus and Hit Parader, if you guys remember that.
Yeah.
That was the term they used. And it was basically to describe bands like Def Leppard, Pyromania, because it was more radio-friendly sound than, say, Rainbow. Or actually even Rainbow with Joe Lynn Turner was kind of a heavier version of Journey in some ways. I mean, I'm not comparing the two bands. They're very different animals. But, that version of Rainbow that I first heard of was a very different than the version that with Ronnie James Dio or even with Graham Bonnet. So I'm going to agree with Wayne. Lou?
I don't think grunge killed heavy metal. And for the record, I hate the term grunge. When I hear grunge, I think of like dirt under fingernails. To me, it's like bands like Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. They were hard rock bands. And I don't feel like they took away from what was going on in metal at the time. I feel like they added to the genre of rock itself by being original. But the problem with every genre, whenever it becomes popular, it becomes overexposed and oversaturated. So I agree with what Ralph said about hair metal killing hair metal, because, you know, around that time, late 80s, early 90s, when it was like, you know, hair was permed to the max all out, and when, you know, everyone was wearing like Dago spandex or whatever, you know, it was only a matter of time before people just realized, oh God, another one. And, you know, when I think metal, I think of like not what Poison was.
Right.
And to me, it's like with the metal bands that came out in the 90s, to me, it was more quality stuff, especially the stuff that was released on independent labels and was considered more underground, stuff that was getting covered in Metal Hammer and Terrorizer over in Europe. Granted, you didn't see that in the United States, but the United States is not the be all end all of what's popular in music, because those bands were doing great in Europe. You know, I mean, Typo Negative headlined the a Bizarre Festival in Belgium in '99 when World Coming Down was out. Now, at that time in America, Limp Bizkit was the biggest band in America.
Yeah. Grunge was gone by then.
And grunge was completely gone by then, but would be revived 2 years later thanks to Nickelback. But I digress. But, you know, to me, no, grunge did not kill metal. Metal was still alive. It just went underground. And there's nothing wrong with that. Quality music was still there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to dismiss the whole hair metal, pop metal genre, but it did get formulaic. You had to have your rocker, and then your second single was your anthem, and then you had to have your ballad to show how sensitive and, you know, sensitive hard rockers could be. And it all came with $1 billion video. And you had to have production that modeled itself after Robert John Lang. And then you had to bring in the outside writers, your Diane Warrens and your Desmond Child, to help you get that even.
Holy crap, he's talking about Kiss.
Well, Kiss actually, you laugh, but Kiss actually did do that first, way back.
Right.
Even with Dynasty, they would bring in outside writers. So, you know, now that probably was more, you know, I don't know, I'm sure if it was radio. Well, I'm sure it was. Those guys are very calculating, but yeah, I mean, you are right, Lou. Kiss were one of the first to do that, but they weren't trying to. I don't know. Kiss were doing that, but I think it was more out of necessity, because I think they realized a lot of their songs are starting to sound kind of the same, and also when they were doing the Kisco thing, you know, they needed somebody to help them write those kind of tunes.
And we got the Kiss expert here.
Well, yeah, I'm a Kiss expert. It's something that a lot of people don't know, and really, it's not even in any books or anything. But Kiss did pay off certain people even to get credit on songs, and an example of that was the dude from Pentagram. I forgot his name.
Bobby Liebling.
Yeah, he said it, and that Kiss wanted a few of their songs and offered him money, and he refused because they were not going to give him no credit. They were just going to pay him off. So if he said that, I'm thinking, well, how many people did take the money and get no credit? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. Shit.
But you know, I'm sure like your Desmond Childs and your Dan Warren saying nope, but you're gonna have to give me credit and I'll let you have it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you got to remember, Kiss also was total hair metal during that. You know?
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, definitely. When
yeah.
took that makeup
Asylum.
off.
Yeah, look at the image in Asylum. Absolutely, you know.
You got the neon colors and everything. And
Yeah.
I mean, Gene Simmons wearing like B. Arthur style clothing with your mom's hairstyle. It was ridiculous.
Oh yeah. You're right. Yeah, they totally went for that image. You know. Well, it's kind of funny because Cinderella is kind of lumped in there, you can sort of say their first album may fall into that category, but in reality, they were a classic hard rock band dressed up in, in glam clothing.
Right.
You listen to Long Cold Winter, and not only that, John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin isn't going to get involved with his Poison. So it tells you something about Cinderella. And the guy who produced them was a guy named Andy Johns, who worked with the Rolling Stones. And again, he was no lightweight. So,
Posey Powell played drums on Long Cold Winter, and
again, somebody who's not going to get involved with somebody he doesn't respect.
I think Night Song's fucking rocks, and that
I still think it's a great album. I agree.
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like glam to me. I mean, maybe a little bit with Nobody's Fool, but songs like Night Songs and Nothing for Nothing and Back Home Again, those are metal songs, man. It
Yeah,
doesn't
the closest to get is, I guess, Shake Me, right? And I even like that song, but I guess Shake Me.
Yeah, here hints here and there, but I don't hear Cry Tough or Talk Dirty to me.
No.
I think they just got popular, unfortunately, in that period of time where it was all full of the glam bands, and they just got lumped into it.
No, but also they're to blame. Look at that album cover,
Right.
I mean, that's total glam album cover, but the music to me is not, hints, but for the most part, it's pretty hard rocking album, man.
Oh, same thing with Doc. If you look at the cover to Under Lock and Key, and what's funny, if you saw that tour, they didn't dress like that ever again. They did that album cover and probably burned that wardrobe. But yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you even had Queensryche dressing like as King Fally would call it, transvestite vampires.
Yeah,
that
wasn't really glam look. It was more like, to me, it was more Depeche Mode than Poison. You know what I mean?
To me, it's more like they found Prince's leftover wardrobe from the tour before. Is what it looked like.
Right.
Great perms they had back then. But the music still stood on its own, know? And, when I think of what they call grunge, and I've never admitted to being a Pearl Jam or a Nirvana fan, although I thought 10 was a good album. And I mean, you couldn't go anywhere without somebody rocking a Nevermind or an Utero t-shirt. I thought Nirvana was okay. Wasn't my cup of tea. And for me, Dirt from Alice in Chains, Bad Motorfinger from Soundgarden. To me, you could put that up with classic 70s Sabbath. You could put that up with, what would be
Zeppelin.
I'm sorry?
Soundgarden, Zeppelin. Type vocals,
Yeah, you could put it up against that, and you could see, and you can not only see influences, but I don't know. To me, it's just about quality of music. And I remember, though, after Kurt had passed away, regardless of how people say it, some people say it was Courtney Love, but I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I had to throw that out there. But it's amazing how many bands that came out after that happened started to sound like grunge. What they tried to pass off for that sound. So in the end, grunge may have killed hair metal or hair metal may have killed the way hair metal killed hair metal, but grunge definitely killed grunge.
It was the same thing, because hair metal, you had so many copycat bands, Pretty Boy Floyd, all these bands that are, the look, the sound of all these bands that became successful. The same thing happened with grunge. But to me, the difference between grunge and those hair metal bands is that those hair metal bands sounded alike. They all had that same vibe. Man, Alice in Chains sounds nothing like Soundgarden.
Exactly.
Soundgarden and Alice in Chains sound nothing like Nirvana. Those were, or Pearl Jam. I mean, those were the big four, or big three. And they sounded nothing like each other. But after Kirk killed himself, you had some Soundgarden clones, Nirvana clones, Alice in Chains clones. I mean, I even popular bands were doing Alice in Chains type songs,
Right. Yeah.
And
that's the thing. Heavy metal was so big in the early 80s, they were all about, the satanic stuff. And people get probably tied, sick of hearing that kind of stuff. And that's why the hair metal came in, because everybody wants to party and all that crap. So, heavy metal kind of killed itself in a way. And then when this grunge thing happened, those heavy metal bands tried to be grunge. I mean, you had look at Metallica; they tried to be grunge, and didn't work. And even Megadeth tried to be grunge one day too. It just didn't work. What were you gonna say, Manny?
When we're talking about
I was gonna.
the bottom line is when we're talking about heavy metal killed itself and this and that, we're really talking about the media.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the media is what controls everything. You got to remember, Headbangers Ball had Poison, Bonfoni, had all these bands on there.
Bonfoni.
They weren't fucking metal bands, but they would, the media was telling you, no, they're metal. And then when grunge came in, the media is the one that's saying grunge killed metal. That's the media talking to everybody. That's why people say grunge killed metal, because the media, and let me tell you something, ever since I was a little boy, I still have the copy of a Cream magazine where this is 1978, mind you, is Heavy Metal Dead. They've been writing the obituary for heavy metal since the 70s.
Right.
It's always been trying to kill metal, and it just won't happen. Even when it was at the lowest of the low in America, there were still big festivals in Europe that was all these. Europe didn't get the memo.
Right. No,
Nope.
not at all.
But over here, people are they're sheep, basically. And like MTV, all right, no more Headbangers Ball.
Yeah.
That's it. Why did they cancel Headbangers Ball at that time? Why? Because grunge was big. So they were trying to, MTV's another one saying, look, metal's dead. It's always been this way, and it always will be this way. I wrote a song where it says, about the obituary been written from heavy metal forever. Since the exception, Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, who are proto metal, never got a favorable review in the 70s, ever. Right. And now
none of those guys did.
None
of those guys did.
But they're all in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know why? Because the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who are a bunch of elitist douchebags that write from Rolling Stone magazine, listen to the people, because metal has always been a people's music, not a critic's. Critics have written it off forever, but bottom line is metal will never die. It may do this, but it'll never die. And you really think about this. What year are we in? We're in 2020. Dude, even in the 80s, you wouldn't hear about fucking the stars of the 50s, not 30 years prior.
Right.
Now we're 40 years, and metal is still, people still go see Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, that big venues. It's different than, like when I was a kid, the time difference was swing music, and you have your exceptions of Frank Sinatra and so on that are legendary, and Tony Bennett, but I'm talking about like metal has been a force since 1970 to this day and age,
and it's still around today.
And it's still around, and they're still releasing music. People are still flocking to the shows
because kids discover the music. It's not just, I'm 51. It's not just some 51-year-old guys. Now, granted, a lot of the bigger bands price kids out of going to those shows. It's just a shame, but a lot of that music does sell. What I was going to say too is, prior to grunge, the music was changing anyway. There were bands like Faith No More, Jane's Addiction, where you had magazines like Guitar for Practicing Musician, not your father's heavy metal. Now, whether Jane's Addiction is heavy metal or not, that we can debate that if you'd like. But my point is that already the tide was changing. People were looking for something more. I don't mind Poison, but as much as I may like Poison, that's empty calories. Sometimes you want to hear something with more death. And, Talk Dirty to Me is fun. You go to a concert, pick up a couple chicks, but, it doesn't make you think about anything deep. Yeah. I hope not anyway, if it's your Poison, but.
I mean, I'm not into Poison, but I love Brain Dead shit. I'm a big fucking Kiss fan.
Yeah, but behind Kiss, that you can tell, as corny and as ridiculous some of their songs can be, you can tell that Gene and Paul are two intelligent guys. Those are, whatever you may say about Kiss, you may say, I don't like their songs, I don't like this, I don't like their image. But if you're listening to even their worst album, you can go, I hate that songwriting, but it's well constructed. It's well put together.
Yeah, they're
They,
good songwriters.
yeah, they know what they're doing, even if some of this too calculating. So I think that's why someone like Kiss would get a pass where Poison doesn't, at least in my opinion.
But the whole point of Kiss too is like, oh, Kiss, it's all about the bombs and this and that. Let me tell you, man, if they had shitty songs, nobody would care
Yeah, exactly. At
Right.
the end
how
of
good
the
their
day,
shows were.
Yeah,
And they wouldn't still be around today.
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
would give a shit.
exactly, and that's the bottom line. It's about the songs, but I don't think. And also keep in mind that when grunge first came out, even Nirvana, they weren't promoted as an alternative rock band. They're promoted as a heavy metal band. Even Pearl Jam, who really is more a classic rock, even
Right.
jam band, were
Yep.
promoted as a heavy metal band. But Pearl Jam came from the ashes of Mother Love Bone, and
Great
Mother Love
band.
Bone, which are a great band. But Andrew Wood was a big fan of Queen and T-Rex and things like that. So
Yeah, that's the glam scene. So
right. And not only that, Soundgarden and even Kurt Cobain were Kiss fans. And um,
not only that, Kurt Cobain was a Celtic Frost fan.
Yes.
he was.
That's what we listened to on the tour bus on the In Utero tour.
Yep. And you come to find out years later, Henry Rollins is a fan of Ted Nugent. Maybe not his politics, but a fan. The point is that this music is a lot more widespread and a lot more influential than even was given credence at the time.
I admit, when I was younger, I used to get very upset when mainstream media didn't validate the bands that I liked. Now, in that genre of grunge, there was one band that stood out to me, and they were not from Seattle. They weren't even American. They were an Irish band called Curb Dog, who, when my brother bought the cassette just because of the name, he thought the name sounded cool, and we put it in his cassette player and his radio, and we're like, holy shit, this is awesome. I'm like, these guys should be bigger. And this was 95. We discovered this cassette, and it came out in 93. No one had heard of Curb Dog in the United States. It was all what they were pushing on MTV. And I remember at the time, like 94, the Blue Murder album had come out, Nothing But Trouble. And I remember there was a New York radio station that was playing We All Fall Down. It was Q104.3 when they were pure rock.
Mm-hmm.
And then the moment that the tide changed, when we were mourning the death of Kurt Cobain, it's like they completely abandoned that format and went for like just all Seattle bands. Didn't matter if it was good, it just had to fall in that formula. And then I was like, why aren't they playing Curb Dog? They're on a major label. They were on Mercury at the time. You figured, okay, big money label like Mercury, payola was a thing at the time. I don't care what anyone says. Radio stations did play stuff if you paid them. Look at JoJo's success, people. But I digress. It's just, it annoyed me when radio, MTV didn't validate the music that I liked. But looking back on it, I asked myself, why did I care? Why did I bother so much? Now to this day, I'm just like, I like what I like. I don't care if it's relevant to you or not, but I'm going to like it anyways. Sorry, Ralph, go ahead.
No, I didn't want to cut you off. I agree with you. The thing is that it drives me fucking crazy with these people bitching about why their band is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Why do you care?
Yeah.
The Rock and Roll, I don't blame the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I blame you for caring about an institution that looks down on your music and that are forced to put in bands like Kiss and Sabbath and Zeppelin, who they've always bashed back in the day. Now, this is the enemy. It's like, it's kind of like, I don't know, man, Jews for Hitler. I don't get it. Fuck the fucking Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It makes no sense to me how you can like something that really wants your music dead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the media is the same way. I don't give a fuck. Hey, man, I went to go see Sebastian Bach. I mean, I'm not a big, I love those couple Skid Row albums. You couldn't fit another person in that place. It was packed.
Yeah.
It was packed, and that guy gets no press at all. And when he does get press, he's a fucking idiot. All he does is say stupid shit online, and he still packs a fucking club, you know, because of the music, because of the people that don't listen to what is cool, what you gotta, you know, this is the hot thing, and that's the hot thing. Fuck that. Make your own decision and stop wanting your band in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Stop it, because you're the enemy for the enemy. You know, that's the way I look at it. It's like, why isn't Judas Priest in there? Fuck that. I want Bon Scott out of there.
Yeah, he wouldn't want to be in there himself.
Exactly. You know, I want Black Sabbath the fuck out of there. They hated him, but they were pressured. Hey, man, we got to bring Black Sabbath in because they influenced Soundgarden, and we like them.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
Black
it's like
Sabbath
my favorite
influenced
Groucho
it.
Marx line. I wouldn't want to join any club that would have me as a member.
There you go. And my hero, Johnny Rotten, Johnny Lydon, when they inducted Sex Pistols, he wrote him a letter, fuck you and fuck your club. And another hero of mine that, you know, I don't own none of his records is Steve Miller. Steve Miller was inducted. He went there and he said, man, you're charging $10,000 for tables in the front. Where the fuck's that money going? I don't see it here. Who's pocketing all this fucking money? You know,
Jan Warner, probably.
I love him for that. You know, he went there and they were saying, hey, you got to get off stage. And he's like, no, I'll get you off the stage. Steve Miller rules, man. You know?
Yeah.
You know? That's how I look at it. Fuck the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but fuck more the people that care about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame than the actual Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's what I think.
Yeah. Now, mind you, we're not saying that people shouldn't like grunge bands. If you like grunge bands, great. But don't start bullshit that it killed heavy metal, because it didn't.
No, there was nothing wrong with grunge. If it wasn't for a lot of these grunge bands, I wouldn't have gotten into a lot of the metal bands because, like you said, Kurt Cobain was into Celtic or Celtic Frost, however you want to pronounce it.
Tom Warrior's band.
Pronounces it Celtic Frost.
Well, he used to pronounce it Celtic, so that's why there's a confusion.
Well, I have a video of him in the 80s saying Celtic Frost.
Yeah. But yeah, without those bands, without the grunge bands, I would never know about a lot of the metal stuff. And you know, thanks to them, my collection looks like that. You know, so
it's great, man. I mean, I didn't like the media spin on it, but man, when I saw Soundgarden open for Voivod, you know, and I didn't know who the fuck they were, and I bought that CD, Louder Than Love, right after that. I was like, man, they were very Sabbathy, you know, because you talk about grunge, like that's Sabbath, man. What Soundgarden was doing was very Sabbathy, you know. It was like Trouble and Candlemass, you know, just with a Robert Plant type singer. But amazing, man. And then Bad Motorfinger, I thought was even better. I thought,
oh my, hell yeah, yeah.
You know, I was totally into that shit, but you know, I wasn't into like the media saying this is what's killing metal. I was like, no, this is actually contributing to metal in my life, in my world.
I think the bands that were grungy, supposedly, I don't like that term either, would be bands that didn't make it. Mudhoney and Tag.
The Melvins.
Yes, the Melvins.
But hey, Melvins are still around today, you know.
Yeah,
so
they are. They are.
Even though they didn't make it, they're still here, you know.
That is awesome. That's underrated band right there.
Make it by whose standards, though? I mean, by commercial. Listen, if I really gave a fuck what commercial radio said, then I wouldn't be a fan of this band as much as I am. Now, they came out at the same time as grunge, but did they get any radio play? No, they didn't, because they weren't formulaic crap.
No, but they sell quite a few albums. I don't know how many, but they're very successful. You know, probably more so than the Melvins, but yeah.
And that's what determines that's what determines a band's longevity. They're, you know, like, people still see the Melvins when they play in concert. People go to Clutch concerts when they come to town. You know, it's like that is a band's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The fact that they still, you know, speak to their fans, speak to the people. So, you know, and as far as I'm concerned, Clutch has done more for underground bands than any medium. As far as I'm concerned, you know, like you'll get like your hardcore bands, you'll get your stoner bands. They'll bring all those bands out on tour with them because they just love good music, and that's what it's all about. You know, yes, there were good bands in the grunge genre, but they did not contribute to any death of heavy metal.
No, but they did not ever take out a metal band out on tour, where metal bands took grunge bands out on tour before they made it.
This is true.
That I thought was unfair. You know, I mean, Alice in Chains, which I thought was the best out of all.
Yep.
Opened the Thrash of the Titans. Now, I was already a fan because if somebody gave me the facelift CD, I'm talking about before Man in the Box. I mean, it's
same here. I bought that before it came out too. Yeah.
I heard the first song, "We Die Young." I was like, "Fuck!"
Somebody,
it's heavy.
Somebody had given me a 12-inch single of Man in the Box. I can't remember what the B-side was, but it was a non-album side or album cut, and I fell in love with that right away. And they actually opened for Poison because Alice in Chains would tour with anybody at that point. You know, they didn't. They just wanted to get out there and give credit to Poison because you know back then bands could handpick. I don't think they do so much anymore, but back then, you know. But also, you know, I'm sure Bret Michaels isn't that dumb, and he saw, there's the writing on the wall. Something different's coming, you know. So I'm sure it wasn't like. I doubt Bret Michaels sat around and listened to Alice in Chains. I could be wrong, though. I could be wrong, but
well, even they changed their sound a little bit and went a little. Who knows? What was going to say, Lou?
I was going to say to Bret Michaels' credit, and I'm not the biggest Poison fan in the world, but talk about it. Yeah, I mean his music may be formulaic and fall in that, but again, I give him credit because he goes out and performs for the people. He did a free concert for people in the town of Oyster Bay, where nearby where I live, and he also played Mulcahy's, and he gave half of the ticket money to I don't think it was Wounded Warriors Project, but he gave it to veterans people. So he's always looking. You're right. He took Alice in Chains out on tour with them, but he probably didn't care that they were different. He just saw opportunity was there, like to maybe cross fan bases, but
right.
he also does his best to contribute to society in some way. So I'll give him that credit.
And he has a good Snapple.
Yeah, he's doing the same thing down here. Look, I'm not a fan of Bret Michaels at all, and I'm definitely not a fan of John Bon Jovi, but that guy has opened restaurants for homeless people.
Absolutely. Yeah, he has.
And I'm not a fan of his at all, but as a human being, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he actually, John Bon Jovi actually goes in and cleans goes in the back of the kitchen and does some work. He washes dishes, pots and pans, So I give him credit. Yeah, I think that's cool. I don't know, the term grunge, I mean, is that a real term for music in you guys' opinion?
No, I don't even know where that came from.
I was reading something about that. It was like in the 70s. But I forget. Some producer came up with that term or whatever. But even the grunge bands I was reading, like definitely Soundgarden and Nirvana, they did not like that term grunge at all. They didn't even want to be associated with that name at all.
Because they don't sound like Soundgarden. They don't sound like Nirvana. It's the weirdest thing, Even, I'm the big metal guy. I hear a similarity with early Maiden, early Priest. I hear the similarity with Accept, with the heavy metal stuff.
Right. Yep.
These guys were polar opposites, man. I can't, especially Alice in Chains with the melodies and the heaviness. It was like, and Pearl Jam is so different than all of that. Yeah, like somebody said, it was Lou. They were like a jam band,
Manny mentioned that.
Manny said it. So it's just so different. So the grunge thing is again what I was saying earlier. The media tags it. This is what.
Yeah, just to follow a trend. That's a little.
And a lot of people are like that because if you put up any fucking music, there's always somebody that's got to say, it sounds like this band. It sounds like that band. Can't you just listen to music and just,
Yeah.
People like familiarity. That's the thing about that,
But the funny thing is, though, it's like if you say grunge and then you say Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, and Soundgarden, Okay, so your basis for that genre name is the fact that those 4 bands came from Seattle. You know who else came from Seattle? Jimi Hendrix and Queensryche. Do they sound alike?
And Heart's from there.
And Heart, yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, Nirvana also had a pop sensibility to it. Even on Bleach, if you hear it, there's a pop sensibility. I remember when they started throwing the word punk around. I didn't consider them punk because to me punk was the Sex Pistols and the old guard,
Right.
and Nirvana didn't really have a political lyrical content or even the hint of it. It was more egocentric, meaning it was more about Kurt Cobain and what he was feeling, more than it was a universal thing. Now, granted, a lot of kids get depressed. They may have been related to it, but he wasn't real. In my opinion, Kurt Cobain wasn't writing for an audience. He was writing for himself, and he just happened to be able to write these melodies that were catchy and poppy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I love the poppy part. I'm not a big Nirvana fan, but I love their poppy songs.
Do you like Sliver from Incesticide?
Yes.
That's a good track, I'll admit.
Daddy Take Me Home. And I like well, look, when they first bursted out, I didn't know. I knew Bleach from a friend of mine, and I heard it, I was like, oh, I didn't get it. I liked About a Girl and I like Negative Creep, but the rest of it, then when I heard Teen Spirit, I really didn't get it. Then the next single, Come As You Are, I was like, this is even worse. Then they played Lithium, and I became a huge fan of that album. To me, I know it's the trendy thing to say, but to me, Nevermind's their best album. Stay Away, in Bloom. I mean, that whole album, except for those 2 big hits, I love the fuck out of that album. I didn't like their more alternative things,
So not the Steve Albini produced stuff.
And I hate that guy. I hate him. What he did to Cheap Trick. Cheap Trick's second album, In Color, he re-recorded it because Cheap Trick hated the album. So oh my God, that shit's fucking blasphemy. It's so bad. And I don't like his production. I didn't like In Utero. I mean, I like what's that T song? Penny Royalty.
Yeah,
Penny Royalty, yeah.
I like that song, and I liked the single Heart Shaped Box.
Heart Shaped Box, yeah. Actually, I like that album quite a bit, but I obviously Kurt Cobain was story behind that is Kurt Cobain obviously was trying to be edgy, and the original production from Albini, this is in his biography Heavier Than Heaven, and there's a bunch of other books you can look at it. The record company heard it, didn't like it, but they couldn't really do anything about it because they had creative control.
That cloud.
But Kurt Cobain is the one that went back and re-recorded a lot of those tracks, so that's why it sounds as good as it does. But he told Albini that the record company is giving me shit. They're saying it's not commercial enough. But reality is Cobain was very disappointed and went back and, I don't know who produced it. I think it was the engineer, or maybe they brought Butch Vig in by secret. But that's why a lot of those songs, they didn't re-record everything. There's a few songs on there you can tell they didn't like on radio friendly or whatever that crap is. But
Albini has gone on record and said that he's not a producer. He's an engineer. He just records the bands. Like he produced a lot of stuff for the band recorded a lot of stuff for the band Neurosis, but he's never labeled on anything as a producer because he's like, I don't produce anything. The band produces it. I just record it. So in other words,
I call bullshit on that because he's got a sound, So yeah. Yeah, but anyway,
I'm just quoting him. Don't kill the messenger.
I know. But I'm just saying In Utero is why, they went back and Cobain just told the press that, the label made him go back and do it. But that's not true. That was Cobain's idea.
And the one thing I really liked about grunge was even like how you mentioned, Manny, how the lyrical content fit like, with depression and just like real life topics, and a lot of the metal bands weren't really doing that. They're talking about Satan and all that kind of stuff. And I like the realism of the grunge stuff. It made you feel like you fit in with that. And that's the stuff. That's why I like that.
Grunge was more personal, but thrash really did. you know, they weren't really saying this, saying that. It was more,
No, but they were more like political way. Yeah.
you know, it was, they were talking more about, you know, social issues,
Right.
thrash, like nuclear assault and
Well,
stuff.
then that means thrash metal was really more influenced by punk than so-called grunge was. Then,
Right.
truthfully, you
Uh,
know.
and new wave of British heavy metal. It was a combination of both that really, and Judas Priest. A lot, all thrash bands look back at Priest and Kiss, you know, as big influences on.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah, Chuck Schuldiner was a huge Kiss fan. But I think, like everything, self-loathing definitely became a focal point in a lot of grudge bands that came in that wake. And after a while with self-loathing, it's like, all right, I'm really tired of hearing about this. Like, it's becoming as played out as the whole, you know, satanic imagery as you were mentioning before, Wayne. I mean, I remember, you know, going to club shows in Queens, especially at Castle Heights. There were a couple of bands who came from my area. They went to my same high school, and they were writing songs that sounded. They tried to be Nirvana, essentially, was what it was. And the problem was I just didn't think there was any sincerity in it.
Well,
that's the thing. I was like, dude, your dad's a doctor, your mom's a nurse, you live in a big house. What the fuck do you have to be depressed about? It's like, come on.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, lack of sincerity. I think Stain, excuse me. I think they took it to the ridiculous level with the whole self-loathing. If you listen to any of those songs that were big for a while.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah. And is the guy talented? Sure, but you know, nobody's that depressed. So, I mean, even Kurt Cobain wrote lighthearted songs, for fuck's sake. Nobody is that depressed, you know. Oh.
I mean, Ozzy complimented Kurt's writing and said it was great pop music. I mean, even Joe Elliott of Def Leppard praised his songwriting. So, you know, he said, "Oh, it's like Beatles, just more distorted." You know, good stuff.
Yeah,
good music.
See that. I can see that. You know, again, he wrote good pop melodies, and people forget that. You know, I think people compare the rise of grunge to punk in the 70s. The difference is that punk never took off in the United States. A matter of fact, when punk was big over in the 70s, 77, 78 in Europe, or specifically United Kingdom, what was big over here? Disco. Even Blondie, who I love, recorded a disco type tune, Heart of Glass, you know. So the Ramones hired Phil Spector. So that kind of music did not have any not only any commercial clout, but any kind of clout. They would get press maybe in Rolling Stone. Now in the 80s and 90s, that started changing. Some, you know, the classically had hits, but you know, in the 80s and 90s, that started changing, and these bands would, you know, not only started selling records, but you also saw a new alternative scene with bands like the Smiths and Depeche Mode. And again, none of these bands sound like any of them, but people forget all of this stuff, and you know, at least I feel they do. And
in the chat here, Jules Guitar says he would say grunge is the persistence of heavy music after consumerism killed heavy metal.
Well,
So.
That's your opinion, dude. I respect it.
But I think grunge actually really helped out metal a lot, really, because a lot of the metal bands, you know, even though they were trying to fit into, you know, trying to figure out what to do, you know, because like I said earlier, some of the metal bands really tried to be grunge and didn't work out. But go over to Europe and you got Halloween. They got back on track and put out. I always got to go back to Halloween, right, Lou?
Hey, why not?
Oh, Wayne,
I fit it in there somehow. But
just be that pumpkin behind you. You had to mention the band
right
thing.
there. Yeah. But them, and then Gamma Ray, another Halloween band, and then you got Blind Guardian and all that European heavy metal, power metal stuff. You know, that started to become huge. So
yeah, you're right, in the 90s. But you got to remember, the one band that really flew the flag of metal, love them or hate them, they were packing places and they went number one in 1994 was Pantera.
Pantera, absolutely.
Went number one in the height of grunge.
Yeah.
And they had a rabid following all until the end, man. But I agree with you, Wayne. I got into a lot of the power metal stuff, but in the 90s too, I got into black metal. I really liked
Right.
the second coming of black metal, like Immortal and Emperor and all that stuff. That's what I was into. And some of the power metal. I like that early Hammerfall. Primal Fear is probably one of my favorites. And Halloween was around already, but they were still releasing great stuff with Andy Darius.
Well, that's when Andy Darius came in. That's when they started becoming the earlier stuff that they used to do, because then they had those 2 albums that a lot of people don't like.
I liked Pink Bubbles.
Pink Bubbles. Yeah.
I like that. Chameleon was terrible, but did you like that one? I know you're the hell.
Yeah, of course I did. Yeah.
But you gotta admit that's a drastic different album.
Huge difference. Yeah, I don't. It's hard to consider it a Halloween album just because of the complete departure they had there. But yeah, I like it.
Watch our episode covering that album. I go through every track and rip it apart.
A lot of memories with that album.
It's hard for me to think. The single from Chameleon was catchy. I liked it, but it wasn't Halloween. I don't know the name of the song, but I really liked that song. But the rest of that album was like, wow.
Man. When the Sinner.
Love that song. And it doesn't sound like Halloween, but it's a great poppy type tune,
Yeah.
Well, I think every band has a weird album in their discography, except AC/DC, because they just do the same thing, which is fine, but yeah.
Yeah, that's their thing.
Yeah.
Well, I get upset that Flick of the Switch barely gets any love, and I love that album.
That's a great album.
I don't think they've made an album that good since, and I love some of the later stuff. Like the last 2 albums I really liked a lot, but Flick of the Switch to me was, nothing was as good as Flick of the Switch.
Oh yeah, Nervous Shakedown, Badlands, Bedlam in Belgium, which by the way is based on Brian Johnson wrote the lyrics, but based on an experience Bon Scott had. So it's kind of interesting,
I did not know that. What are you talking about? The Belgium?
Bedlam in Belgium.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, when they were in Belgium, they were trying to stop the show, and Bond said something to him, and the cop came and arrested him. I don't think they cracked him in the back of the head, but you got to have a little bit of, poetic license. So.
Oh, that's cool, man. That's awesome. Yeah. I love Brian Johnson because he's so respectful to Bond,
Absolutely. And we also like the fact he's his own man. He didn't try to be Bon Scott, Thankfully, he didn't take his shirt off and all that stuff like Bond.
Yeah, he left the Paperboy hat on. I will say this though, like In Flames was the gateway band for me after grunge had imploded and nu metal exploded. That opened me up to the metal scene in Europe.
Jester's Race is awesome.
That's the album.
What a great album. I liked Horacle too. That was a good one.
I didn't listen to any of that power metal stuff.
Not really.
Other than Halloween.
That's like death metal.
Melodic death metal, they called it, yeah.
Well, I grew up in Tampa, so death metal was it. But Halloween was the only one, and Manowar. And the only reason I heard of Halloween is we used to have a local station, V32, UHF station, and they used to have 3 hours of metal. And one of the videos they would play would be Halloween, except it was like a 3-minute version, not 7-minute or whatever.
We don't mention that version.
Yeah, but that's how I got into them. But I don't recall them being called power metal. But stuff like Blind Guardian, Hammerfall, I didn't hear about that stuff till, I don't know, 2000s. By then it already been around a while.
Right,
yeah.
But,
Rhapsody of Fire was another one I hadn't heard of.
Yeah, that was Rhapsody. That was another one, man. That was what I was gravitating to when everybody was into Silverchair and all that.
It's funny. I remember one year for Christmas. I always tell my mother to get me CDs and stuff because I was really heavy into that. It's when my collection started growing, and I got Rhapsody, the first Rhapsody album, Alice in Chains, Sap. I mean, how much different could you be? And I forget some of the other ones, but it just 2 completely different genres there, and it's just like it didn't matter to me. Music is music. If you like it, that's all.
At the end of the day, that's really it. I mean, really.
I'm 56 years old, and I grew up listening to radio that would play Elton John, Led Zeppelin, "You Light Up My Life," whatever that chick's name was called, Patty Boone or something. It was so eclectic growing up listening to radio that's how I was raised. By different things. Yeah, but I will admit in the 80s, if it wasn't in early 80s, if it wasn't metal, it was crap, you know, but
Right.
then I grew out of that shit, you know, but still, but I will say to this day, I love a lot of different types of music. I'm in love with that new ABBA album. I'm a big ABBA fan. But I will say this, man, I love a lot of different types of music, but still, I will still say it all takes a backseat to metal. My
Very
favorite
true.
fucking music ever. And Black Sabbath rules.
And heavy
Greatest band
metal
ever.
has never died, especially on Rat Salad Review. Heavy metal will never die.
It's gonna die when I die, and believe me, that's no time soon.
No, I hope not. Still
Knock
got to
on
finish
wood.
the King Diamond show first.
Oh man, I'll be setting. I'll be there at your grave, Wayne, putting flowers down. I'm telling you, I'm gonna break records, dude. I'm gonna be a Guinness World Records, 198 years old. I think I'll have
I hope so. I hope so. But this was a lot of fun, and yeah. What's everybody? Lou, what's your favorite? I mean, there's only so many grunge bands, but what's your favorite grunge band?
Oh, Lou?
Lou.
I hate the term, but I would say of the popular bands, I'd have to give it to Alice in Chains' Dirt. A band that I think people should check out is Curb Dog's self-titled CD.
All right, cool. I'll have to check that out. Never ever heard that before.
Curb Dog with a K, KERBDOG.
Okay. I trust you. Ralph?
I agree. Alice in Chains is my favorite, and underrated Tad. I would say people should check out Tad. That is a cool band.
I always remember seeing the videos on Headbangers Ball, but I liked them, but I never got into them.
And a band that was, I don't know if people would be into them or not, because they're very, very poppy, but I'm a huge fan that traveled to New York to see Letters to Cleo. I don't know if
Letters to Cleo was cool.
I love that fucking band, man.
Yeah.
Here and Now was a great track, and their cover of Dangerous Type from the Cars was awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah.
I love Letters to Cleo, but they're more of a power pop band, because I'm, one of my favorite bands ever is Cheap Trick, and they covered I Want You to Want Me To. And I discovered Letters to Cleo on Conan O'Brien. The chick was wearing a Cheap Trick shirt, and I was like, "Who is this?" And I automatically loved them because the music was good, and she's hot, and she's wearing a fucking Cheap Trick shirt. So became an instant fan. And yes, like 4 years ago, I traveled to New York with my friend. My friend Carlos lives there, a total metalhead, death metal guy. I dragged him along, saying, "Dude, I'm sorry. I know you're not gonna like it, but come with me to see this. I'll buy you a ticket." And yeah, sure enough, he didn't like it, but man, that was a great show.
Manny.
Oh, easy. Soundgarden, Bad Motor Finger. I think Soundgarden was a good combination of what came before and what was coming in the future. And I just think they were a great band. And I miss Chris Cornell. May he rest in peace.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And
Me
Lane
too.
Staley as well.
Yeah.
And Mike Starr.
My Bad Motor Finger is a fucking masterpiece.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's
From beginning to end.
yeah, it's
I
excellent.
love Jesus Christ Pose. I mean, he plays almost the same drum beat through the entire song. And I saw him play that live. And it's amazing. That's one of my favorite drum beats in a song.
One of my favorite videos too, how that nail's coming through the screen.
Yeah.
That video is wicked, man. And My Good Eye Closed, Mine Riot.
Rooms
They
a
did a
Thousand Years
killer-
Alive.
Yeah, that's the one I was
Right
going to
there,
mention.
man.
Yeah.
They did a killer cover of Into the Void from Sabbath where they changed the lyrics.
I
So
have that single actually. I think it's the Outshine single or Rusty Cage, one of the two. I have it on CD. Yeah, I love Soundgarden. I mean, as I said, I got into them right when I saw them open for Void Fight. I had no idea who they were, and I was like, "Man, what the fuck? Listen to that guy!"
Yeah.
Like, damn, what a voice on him, man. It was that was the best time I ever saw him. Because unfortunately, every time I saw Soundgarden on what's the album after, I saw them open for Guns N' Roses on
Super Unknown.
Super Unknown. Oh my God, the sound man should have been fired.
No, that was Guns N' Roses. I saw them twice. I saw them headlining, sounded great. I saw them open for Guns N' Roses and Metallica. It sounded like shit. I agree.
Okay, yeah. The sound man was fucking terrible.
Yeah, I actually like the four original, the four big ones of the Seattle scene. I'm still a huge fan of all of them, personally.
I just remembered something. We said that, the grunge bands never took metal bands on tour. I don't know how anyone particularly feels about the band Coheed and Cambria, but Soundgarden did take them on tour.
But I actually like them. Yeah.
And even Heaven and Hell, Sabbath with Dio took Coheed and Cambria on tour. So I think that's definitely a feather in Coheed's camp. The fact that Soundgarden and an iteration of Black Sabbath took them on tour. So,
well, I refuse to call them Heaven and Hell. It's Black Sabbath. Anyway,
amen to that.
My favorite is Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, but Chris Cornell, yeah, like you said, Manny, miss him. He's probably my top favorite vocalist. Just everything that he did vocally was just awesome. He's up there.
Really?
He's up there.
Michael Kiske my favorite. Michael Kiske my favorite, but yeah, Chris Cornell, yeah.
Not me.
No, not you. Have you heard yourself?
No, I don't. I'm afraid to.
But yeah, Michael Kiske and Chris Cornell definitely the top favorites. But and my wife actually got to see them. I was so pissed right when they got back together. Soundgarden. Her friend had tickets to go see Soundgarden, and he asked her to go, and I wish he would have asked me because I would have wanted to see that.
I once saw Chris Cornell solo. It was amazing.
Yeah, he had that one solo album that was crap though. The one that he did with that rapper
Billie
guy.
Jean.
Oh, that was terrible. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it.
What the hell is the rapper guy?
Scream, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I don't
Scream.
remember. It was
Yeah,
terrible.
So bad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
to end the
shitty.
show,
Let's just be honest.
what do you guys think killed grunge? I mean, was it Kurt Cobain killing himself and that pretty much like put everything to the end, or was it something else?
Nah, the same thing that killed metal.
Metal.
The media moved to new metal.
The new metal.
The whole Limp Bizkit, Korn, and stuff like that. That's what took its place. And the media focused on that.
And the oversaturation and overexposure of it definitely helped to kill it. I mean, I remember after Headbangers Ball had gone off the air, I was still watching 120 Minutes. Like, I liked both shows, but 120 Minutes, I remember there were a lot of bands who, if you asked me which one was which, I couldn't tell you because a lot of them sounded the same. So it was only a matter of time.
I take it back. Cookie cutter bands really killed it. Copy,
Yeah.
That's what killed grunge. Oversaturated, just like Britney Fox and Pretty Boy Floyd. Kind of like since it was metal to the media.
I mean, Wayne, there were a lot of bands that were considered new metal that I thought was an unfair terminology for them that I really liked. I really liked Seven Dust and I really liked Deftones. So, to say that to lump them into the same pool as, like, let's say a Limp Bizkit or,
or Korn
Machine Head when they released the Burning Red, I thought was completely unfair, And again, that's another genre that killed itself.
What about you, Manny?
Well, I think what killed it was all the things you said, but I also think the death of Kurt Cobain, the drug addiction of Lane Staley, crippling Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam kind of turned it away from being a huge corporate rock band to becoming internalized. I think all those things, and Soundgarden breaking up, I think all those things helped kill the genre, because those are the big four, and it would have been like, comparative to Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, and Deep Purple in the 70s. So, in my opinion.
All right, very cool. Well, I thank you guys very much for coming on the show. Ralph, it's good seeing you again. And hopefully we see you
Nice
again
meeting
on the King Diamond show.
You too, Manny, and I wear my Rap Salad Review shirt proudly.
Good, I'm glad you do. And Manny, thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you coming on here. It was a lot of fun. And Lou, you're all right.
Yeah, I'll live.
Lou, you got anything? Lou, you got anything going on?
I just released my most recent episode of Music is Live podcast where I interviewed the amazing Helen Cullen, the wife of Def Leppard guitarist Phil Cullen. Spoke to her about her life, her career as a costume designer for theater shows and on television shows, Now she's making her living as a visual artist and as a photographer. So released part 1 of that episode. Part 2 is gonna come up soon. This Saturday, I'll be driving to Poughkeepsie with my buddy Matt Micolo. We'll be checking out Yngwie Malmsteen and my friends in the band Images of Eden playing at the Chance Theater. And I'm just getting ready for the 2 shows that I'm doing with Bad Habits at Thin Lizzy tribute in January. So
awesome, that'd be cool. Maybe I'll show up to one of those.
one of them will be out by you. So
all right. Where?
Red River Inn. Yeah,
That sounds familiar. Oh, okay. All right. I know what it is.
Yeah.
Right. I might show up to that one.
Cool. Yeah, you'll
Ralph,
get to
what
meet
about
Jerry
you?
and the guys.
Cool.
Almost Human on YouTube, almost 25,000 subscribers.
God, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's doing insanely well. And this right here, Melting Your Skull, is now on cassette.
Yeah, that's right.
Unchained Tapes has just released Melting Your Skull on cassette. It's only $8. That's it. And it's awesome. It sounds amazing. I want to thank Chevy, the guy that hit me up if he could release this. He says it's selling amazingly. And he's about to do a second pressing. So go on Unchained Tapes. Think it's Unchained Tapes. Just type in Unchained Tapes Thrasher Guy in your Google and get yourself a copy of Melting Your Skull on cassette, because it will make your penis larger.
Oh shit! Well, I gotta order that right
Just when you think he has, Oh,
yeah.
I fucked it up.
now. You fucked it up.
Just when you think you have all the answers, he changes the questions.
And if your penis is very large, do not listen to this, because it'll be sliding out of your pants, man. It'll be embarrassing, and you're gonna get arrested.
Yeah,
Did you ever think that we would see cassettes getting huge again?
Yeah, it's become a thing again, man.
Yeah, it's so weird.
So get this. And I got a podcast called the Rock and Metal Combat Podcast with Ian Wadley, a guy that's even funnier than me. It's hard to believe. And
Impossible.
Vieira Vault. The Vieira Vault on wherever it's on Rat Salad Reviews.
Whenever you do it.
Yeah, whenever I do it. I got a couple coming out soon. So check it out.
Very
that cassette
cool.
looks so cool because it looks like the old Combat
school.
Records
Yeah.
types cassettes.
And like it has that kind of SOD type thing here, what do they call it? Stencil, the stencil look. And I gotta show you this. It's the same picture that's on the album. I said I want to find the ugliest picture of the band. I don't think I can make that out, but yeah, man, we are so fucking ugly on here. Mission accomplished, man. Look how fucking disgusting and disturbing we look.
That is terrible.
It's really bad. And I'm proud to be the ugliest of the bunch. And believe me, that's not a hard thing to do. Look at these other guys.
Yeah, they're all pretty ugly. And you people can see how ugly they are up and close and personal if you go and buy that cassette. So please go and buy that.
Sucks.
And go buy, and while he's promoting his thing, go buy my CD, Project Resurrect.
I was listening to that in my
I'm so sorry.
like 2 weeks ago. No, it's awesome, dude. I love that album. And I play it on my radio show. Oh, yeah, I got a radio show too on Thursday nights on that metal station. The highest rated show on the station, the Dr. Fuck Show.
It's a very good show. Every chance I get, I can listen to that show.
Yeah, I know. You show up in the chat.
I show up every once in a while. It's hard because I'm putting my son to bed usually at that time. But I try to sneak and listen to it while he's sleeping. What, Lou?
My second favorite album of 2021.
No, stop it, please. But you can get it at projectresurrect.bandcamp.com. Manny.
It is number 2. It's Below Halloween, self-titled. Sorry.
Damn it. Anything going on with you, Manny?
No, nothing at all. Just work and hanging out. That's about it. No.
All right. Sounds good.
Not a very exciting one.
Yeah, I didn't think so. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us, guys. And thank you guys for watching. I had a lot of fun here. And we will see you guys next week with Don De Lamont, as long as he doesn't leave his house and get injured or anything happen to him. So see you then. Bye.
Oh my God.
RadstarReview.com. Click, like, subscribe down there. Comment now.
Yes, please hit subscribe. Get us to 25,000 subscribers. We have to beat Ralph Vieira.